This week on the podcast, I'm joined by Keli Fine, a friend whom I've had the pleasure of coaching off and on for the past year or so. Unlike most guests on this podcast, Keli is not a runner. She is a martial artist with a huge training schedule. She'll tell you all about it. She also has a long history with various levels of disordered eating. Before I get into this, I just want to say that nothing in here is advice. It's just two people who have complicated relationships with food, sharing stories about some things that have helped us along the way. And we're trying to show that there's some form of path through the mess. That path isn't always straight or easy, but it can exist. If you or someone you know is currently battling an eating disorder, I've attached the information for the National Eating Disorder Association in the show notes. The number for their helpline is 800-931-2237. And you can also get 24/7 crisis text support by texting NEDA to 741-741. Oh, and Keli and I definitely both swear in this one, so you might not want to listen to this in front of small children. Anyway, here's my conversation with Keli Fine. Welcome to the Trail and Ultra Running Training Podcast. My name is Will Frantz, and I'm here to help you improve your training so you can have more fun out on the trails. This week on the podcast, I have Keli Fine. She's a friend and someone I've been training for a little while, at least with food. She, as you'll see, does all of her own training because she's savage at it. And we're going to talk about some eating disorder stuff today. This conversation is difficult because it brings up a lot of stuff for both of us, but we're doing this because we thought it might help someone honestly get over some of these things that we both struggled with. Keli's done a lot of work, and watching her mindset change has been amazing. But I also want to say that I'm not a specialist in eating disorders. I'm not a therapist. She and I just managed to work well together. I've also not been the only person who's helped her through this. I'm friends with her brother, and I know her coach has been super helpful. So this is not a me thing. This is a showing you what is possible if you can get through some hangups on food thing. So that is what this interview is. I just wanted to show you that eating disorders are struggle. They're probably more common than we want to admit. And if you get through them, your performance in life can be a little better, but that might take years. It's a pain. And neither of us are necessarily fully through that at all. So also, quick note, my roommate and I are fostering 3 puppies, and they just got neutered and spayed today. So there might be some intermittent barking, but we'll see. They're currently down for a nap. Hopefully that clicks. All right, Keli, thank you so much for coming on. I'd love to know a little bit about your training schedule, because as I mentioned, this is mostly a podcast for runners. There will be no running questions because you don't run, but your training schedule is a lot. What are you currently doing as far as weekly training schedule?
So I lift 5 to 6 days a week, and usually anywhere between 60 to 90-minute lift, and that's kind of on my lunch break. And then in the evenings, I do about 2 to 3 hours, either jujitsu or boxing. And then every now and then I'll add in another 2 hour session on after my kind of early evening session. I'll have another 2 hours of either jujitsu or boxing later. And that's and then on weekends I do usually between 3 to 4 hours, either jujitsu or boxing, both days. So probably kind of, I don't know, 15, 20 hours a week, something like that.
Yeah, I'd say it's about 15, 20 hours. And seeing some of your lifts, they're not small either. You just set a PR this week. What did you pull on a deadlift?
285.
Yeah, so definitely strong and training heavy. Um, how's jujitsu going lately?
It's good. I'm coming up in a couple of months. It'll be a year back from because I was out for about 2 or 3 years with a back injury, and when I came back, I'd started, I was rolling with a back brace all the time. And in the last couple of months, I've kind of been weaning off that and adding in more sessions. So it's been really good.
That's awesome. It's really good. It's been like fun watching you get back to that. That's legit.
Yeah, I didn't think I would get there. It was cool.
Well, you put in a shitload of work, so that's fair. Um, what was, since you mentioned it, like what was that back injury? What happened?
I tore like two or three discs in my lumbar discs. And I was just really stupid, and I tear them, and then next day would come back and do 3 hours of open mat or whatever, and I just never gave it time to heal. And it kind of got to the point where I like look at a weight and tear a disc. um so
I feel
so
that.
yeah. um but I had to, like, I stopped jujitsu for about two or 3 years, and was just weight training and doing a little bit of striking. But I feel like kind of learning to not just take a pain pill and go back when I tore a disc, and kind of building up some strength and mobility back has really helped me get back.
Yeah, and I mean, I think myself for sure, and most people listening to this know that response. Like I'm currently taking a break from running because I've like sprained an ankle during my last race and like kept training afterwards. And like it took me looking at the calendar 4 months to finally admit to myself that I was being a complete jackass. So yeah, 100%. I
Yeah.
feel you. How long have you been doing martial arts stuff?
It's about 7 or 8 years now, I think, on and off.
It's awesome. Like what have you done in the past?
Um, so when I first started out, it was just doing Muay Thai. And then my gym had a fight team tryouts, and you had to basically do Muay Thai, wrestling, boxing, and jiu-jitsu for that. And so kind of it just started snowballing from there. And when I was in college, I was doing about, because I did online classes, so I was taking about 8 classes at the gym each day of wrestling, boxing, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, MMA, anything and everything I could. Um, yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot. I've done a little bit of martial arts, but not quite that, like not 8 classes a day, I can tell you that for a fact. So like what drew you to that so much? It's a rough
Um,
sport, let's be honest. Like it's a tough thing. I've gotten hit in the head a couple times and it is enough to deter someone with arguably more sense. Like what is the
yeah.
thing that drew you to the sport?
Um, I mean, I definitely think like to to be in it and stay in it, you've got to be a little bit kind of something's wrong in the head. Um, but I think like one of the that's almost one of the things I kind of love about it. Like once you've had someone, trying to choke you out or knock you out or whatever, like everything else in life just feels so much easier. Like it's not a big deal.
Yeah,
And I think there's also kind of like a Zen aspect of it, like that I love, of kind of being able to stay calm when someone's like kind of trying to murder you like that. I like the the challenge of that.
I get that. There's yeah, that makes complete sense to me. And honestly, like I think a lot of people listening to this would get it too, because like once you've trained for 50 or 100 miles, like shit's just easier. It just is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess like with your back injury, I mentioned at the beginning that we were going to talk about food stuff. Do you think that like food played a role in the injury or the recovery in some way?
100%. Because it first happened when I was doing the kind of 8 classes a day, and I wasn't even eating. I was probably on like 1,400 to 1,500 calories with that 8 hours of training a day. Um,
Okay.
and so it's like, I was always kind of super tired and kind of flirting with injury all the time. Like looking back on it, it's kind of obvious. Like I felt like shit all the time because I wasn't eating anywhere near enough to fuel. And now my training, like I can tell when I'm not fueling enough because like I start to get more like tweaks and get closer to injury.
Yeah,
But I yeah, 100%. I definitely think that um, that played into it.
for sure. So I guess like take me back a little bit, like when did issues with food kind of start and like what, and I realize it's not like a one day to the next, but like
Yeah.
when did things with food kind of start and like what did that look like at the beginning?
Um, so I think like the they really kind of came to a head, I think, for me in high school. Um I didn't know even know what a calorie was, never mind like how many calories are in foods or anything like that. So I um in high school I went through a phase where like, going out with my friends, I would eat like half a box of donuts on my own in one day because I had no idea what that was doing. And then I so unsurprisingly gained a bit of weight
Sure.
um and then like just kind of I think someone said something about like none of us are skinny, and that was the first time that it was kind of like a oh shit, like I'm included in that. And so that then I started on a starvation diet where I was on like 200 calories a day, and just not a healthy way to do it.
Yeah,
So
100%.
and I think that kind of started the kind of obsession and hyper focus on food.
Yeah. So like was that kind of a did that trigger just happen like when you kind of heard that and you realized that, did you kind of within the week start on this aggressive starvation diet, or was it more of like a progression thing?
I think there's a little bit of progression. Like at first, I was just trying to like eat a little bit of health, little bit healthier, cut out the donuts and stuff like that. But I think after maybe like 6 weeks or so, like, I wasn't like obviously I'm not gonna drop the weight overnight. And I kind of I don't know whether I, freaked out about that or like I can get tunnel vision when I decide I want to do something, like that's all I can think about. So I think I just, I felt like I needed to do everything possible to try and drop the weight as quickly as I could. So it just kind of like over the course of maybe 3 or 4 weeks after that, I just started kind of, it was almost like how little can I eat every day, and it just spiraled.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense to me at least. Someone who's also impatient and have had similar things in my past. Um, how did that like and so like that was high school. I assume you were not training MMA at the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Okay. So like how did that propagate down the years and like interplay with sports training?
Um, when I was doing MMA, when I first started MMA, I like a couple years before I started, I had a stomach surgery for some twisted intestines, and I after that kind of started to slip back into some of the like restrictive eating and was actually pretty um, fairly underweight for a while. And when I started martial arts, I was still kind of underweight for my height. And I could tell like um, I would get tired. I had a hard time, especially like often I was the only girl in the classes I was taking. So like, it'd be pretty easy for bigger guys to like overpower me, and that kind of pissed me off. Um, so like maybe a year or two
Yeah.
into doing martial arts, my brother gave me a book. I think, but it's based on Bruce Lee's writing, The Art of Expressing
Oh,
the
sure.
Human Body, I think it is. Um, and that kind of helped me, like even though it was scary to eat more, that was the first one of the first kind of steps I took to like I want to eat more so that I can do better at this thing that I love so much. And so I think that took me from, less than 1,200 calories to 1,200 calories as a kind of first step. But
Good.
I definitely can feel the difference when you're trying to grapple with someone who's twice your weight if you haven't
Yeah,
eaten.
100%. Also realizing like, yeah, 1,200 calories on 8 hours of training a day is not, that's a rough
Yeah,
bag. That's a tough
it's
thing to
not
do.
smart.
No, it's not great. So you mentioned the word scary. Like what was scary about it? Like what scared you about eating more?
Um, I think kind of definitely historically, I think it's still a work in progress, but I've kind of tied my worth to my weight, but also kind of like I think I've had this idea about, I'm not lovable if I'm overweight and I'm if I have any extra like fat on me, then I'm not disciplined, I'm lazy. I kind of have all these like kind of stories that I tell myself about what that means if I have any extra weight on me. So eating any extra food like kind of makes it feeds into that fear of, what that means about me as a person.
Yeah, makes sense to me. I mean, like I don't have really any good reason why it's been this way for me other than just, I fat teenager and lost a bunch of weight when I was 21 and I put myself through the ringer. Like I also did not do it in a way that I would recommend anybody else do it. And it other than the fact that I was strength training, that's positive. But beyond that, like it just wasn't smart. And of course that leads to like injuries and all these struggles, right? And
Yeah,
like still struggle with body image things. Like I realize I don't see what other people see.
yeah,
I'm not sure any of us do, but like most of us, like some of us have even more distorted versions of that. Like everybody talks
yeah,
about me being strong or whatever, and like really all I can see is like this chunk in my stomach. Like that's it. That's all I see.
yeah.
Yeah. And like you end up with this distorted vision down the line. So like has that been better lately? Or is it just the thing you kind of deal with?
I think some of both. Like I, you know, I think I still have moments where like I just see all the flaws and all the things that I want to be different, but I think I'm better at recognizing when I'm doing that and kind of trying to have a little bit more compassion for myself. But also just being able to recognize like kind of um what I'm comparing myself to, and it's kind of like I do this with like lifting. If I'm like lifting at a gym at some, I've kind of caught myself like I'll see like a 250 pound bodybuilder like doing a shoulder press, and I start thinking, well, I can't lift as much as that. Like, I need to up my game or whatever. And it's like I'm not a
Yeah.
250 pound bodybuilder, so kind of recognizing what my benchmark is.
Yeah. That's actually like kind of nice to hear because I do the same shit. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, especially being in the fitness industry, like I know who's on steroids. Like it's fairly clear to me for the most part, and actually don't judge that at all. But like much bigger humans than me who are also enhanced, who also probably have genetic like predispositions to be stronger than me anyway. And then I see them deadlift like 3 times as much as I can, and it was like, why can't I do that? Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, feel like we often end up in this like comparison trap that just isn't helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, have you say you notice it? Like, what does that you notice it, but you don't act on it as much. Like, what does that feel like? Like, what allows you to kind of notice it, but like dial it back rather than just being very reactive to it?
Um, I think, I mean, definitely one part of it is not tying my worth to, my max lift or my body fat percentage. Um, but also, kind of getting clear on, why am I lifting? Why am I training? What's the real kind of purpose behind it? And it's not, I'm not doing weightlifting competitions or anything like that. It's a kind of, and like it's not worth it if I'm like PR or ER. Like I'm not actually trying to be in the ER all the time because I love training, and then I wouldn't be
Yeah.
able to train. So it's getting clear about like, is it worth it? Um, to do the stupid shit that I have done in the past.
Yeah, I get that. I've never heard that PRER, but
I saw it on a t-shirt.
yeah, that hits with me really well. I
Yeah.
understand that compulsion. So if we're looking at like food being a little scary and coming through that a little bit, is there anything that's like still kind of on the scary side when it comes to food?
I think it's always scary, like especially, um if I have to like if I've just upped my training and I need to up my food, like it's always scary kind of doing eating more than I have, or I always have the questions in my head like, well, what if I'm eating too much and start gaining weight or whatever like that. That's still just as scary, I'd say, but I feel like kind of having leaned into that a few times and to have come through the other side and feel how it feels when I feel better, like how how worth it that is. And I feel like when you haven't kind of just jumped in and eaten more and felt the difference, like it's kind of hard to to get that it might be worth it. It seems like, like there's I think that some quote like nothing tastes as good as skinny feels that that's I feel like it's easy to feel like that.
Mm,
um but then once you eat more and like don't feel as shitty, and it's like holy shit, like workouts don't have to be this hard, I don't have to be tired all the time, like how much more freedom that kit gives you, you know I think is way better than feeling skinny.
I agree entirely. Like I feel like at least for myself, and you can probably confirm this, like if you're in it pretty deep and you've been doing it for a while, it's hard to realize how shitty you feel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when I was under eating and training multiple hours a day and like sleeping 4 to 5 hours a night, I was just like, this is just normal. It's not weird until you kind of come out of it. You're like, oh, I don't have to feel this bad all the time.
Yeah, 100%. And I kind of like, yeah, you don't realize how much else of your life, how much other parts of your life that kind of affects. Like, when I was under eating and overtraining, like I never had the energy to like, I didn't want to go out and hang out with people or do other things because it's like it just sounded really tiring, and anything that wasn't either training or recovering, I just wanted to kind of take a nap. Um, and
Yeah.
I think it, yeah.
Yeah, I bet. So, um, I mean, you have, I guess, both of us a little bit, but like you even more so, have the particular maybe misfortune of falling in love with a sport that has like very much a weight focus, right? Like there's a lot of talk about weight and running, and like there is a like power to weight ratio that definitely makes you faster. And like for anybody who needs the detailed version of that, I talk about for that for like 40 minutes and another thing. But like there's a factor there. But like you don't weigh in before you toe the start line at a marathon or something. Whereas for MMA, like you have to step on the scale to get there. And like, is that a thing that maybe fostered this a little more, or was that like, or what did it not really matter?
No, I definitely think that that's played into it. And even for like amateur competitions, like when I kind of started out competing in jiu-jitsu, I've never done any kind of crazy weight cuts. The most I've done was like not eat on the day of weigh-ins or something like that. But even amateurs, you get people doing like, trying to sweat out the last couple pounds, like just doing insane weight cuts for no reason. And at the gym, everyone's always, if you spar or roll with someone after, is always, oh, what's your weight class? And it can be kind of like a backhanded, like a almost an insult, like, oh, you're only that good because you're a lot heavier than me or whatever. And it can definitely like be a head trip, and I think it's certainly not, um especially having people, because I think even if you're not kind of in a weight-based sport, just having someone ask you your weight can be kind of especially like having issues, it's a little bit I don't know, scary, personal. Um, but and so, to have that kind of be a norm in it has definitely um, made it a lot harder. And always thinking about whether, do I want to cut if I lift a lot, or even like, take creatine or whatever, what's that going to do to my weight? Like it definitely puts a lot more focus on it that isn't exactly helpful.
No, 100%. I mean, we know creatine's a performance enhancing supplement, right? But like it's one of the only ones I can guarantee in addition to like caffeine and food. But it will make you gain like 2 pounds and
Right.
2 pounds
Yeah.
in the right spots, right? Like it'll make you more hydrated. It'll put a shit into your muscles. Like it'll make you look better. If your vision is like muscular is kind of looking better, but it will make you gain 2 pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wrestled in high school, so I've definitely done the like run in a trash bag kind of thing before for a weight cut because like I just didn't know how to cut weight right. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's weird how much that feels normal when you're in it, and then
Yeah.
you get out of it and you realize how insane that was. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at things that have like you've tried in the past to kind of get through this, like I know this wasn't an overnight journey. What who have you talked to? Like who have you worked with in the past? Like what have they tried to have you do to in order to get through some of this shit?
Um, I worked with a bodybuilder who was calling himself a nutritionist kind of early on when I was doing MMA, and he gave me a meal plan that was, it would like tell me how much like butter to put on bread, like it was exactly like kind of every amount was exact, and had exact times for when I should eat, what I should eat, and like I did kind of like it helped me lose a little bit of fat and gain a little bit of muscle, and he'd take like measurements, like both calipers and like put a tape measure around me every couple of weeks, and like we saw differences, but I think that kind of fed into the like, well, I almost kind of like I can't choose for myself. I don't have the knowledge or whatever to choose for myself what I eat. So I need to have him tell me exactly what I eat and exactly when. And kind of I, it felt like it made me kind of almost more dependent on him. And I kind of, for a couple of years afterwards, still kind of using the same meal plan that he gave me, and I'd like Google, calories to make some swaps for, but it would make sure it had like the same macro content or whatever, and exact same kind of proportions and everything from this one meal plan that he gave me. And so and it that it didn't, I think it helped me like recomp and things, but I wasn't necessarily feeling good on it. And I don't feel like my performance, like I wasn't feeling like I had good energy to train and things like that. And then I kind of, I've gone on and off kind of more structured meal plans, and that was the only kind of professional. And then I've, done all sorts of like, Googling and following Instagram trainers or whatever and things like that. And all sorts of unhelpful, one kind of Instagram thing
Oh
I
yeah.
signed up for that had me on like 1,200 calories a day again and stuff like that.
Yeah. Through these programs that are created for everybody. They're not for
Yeah.
you, right? They're not for the
Yes.
person training 8 fucking hours a day. They're just not.
Yeah.
Like and uh I just want to touch on like this is why I do not provide meal plans. Like, period. One, it'd be actually technically illegally for me to do so because I'm not a dietitian. But it's a little gray in this state, but still, it's not technically legal for me to do. But like, it feeds the obsession and it doesn't actually help. And
Yeah.
like, what happened to you is exactly what happens. Where this is what works and this is the only thing that works, so you become dependent on this person or this plan that you purchased, and then for until you decide it doesn't work anymore, you are like, oh, well, if I swap rice with quinoa, I basically end up with this, but then I have to adjust my protein. Like you're still following this thing that's not how you necessarily go through every day, right? Like you
Yeah.
don't have this option to, oh, last minute thing on a Friday, so I'm going to go out to my with my friends to like have some pizza, and then how to correct that issue isn't there. So you often just don't go, or you don't eat, or like some people even have like a bulimia response to that where they go and then like do that in order to get rid of it so that they can follow the meal plan. I like I cannot put it any better than you did, especially like someone who's been through it. But meal plans are not a solution. They are like, there's a reason that only dietitians are supposed to prescribe them. They are a clinical medical treatment that you should eventually get out of. They are not a
Yeah.
system for your life. They're just not.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it kind of took away my confidence in kind of choosing what I ate. And it, if you're somewhere where you can't like prepare your own food, like, going out to eat at a restaurant, it's like, well, what if the restaurant like put too much butter on something or whatever, like it just absolutely feeds the kind of the obsession with it.
100%. Like I know if I go out to eat, I'm going to gain 5 pounds because it's all
Yeah.
salt. It's all salt and
Yeah.
carbs. Like it's not like it's not a big deal to me. Like it's I don't even say that negatively. Like I just know the next day I will be heavier because they add more salt than I really could even to my own food. And as a result, like I will weigh more. It's not like I've gained 5 pounds of fat. I'm just like storing a shitload more water. Like it's how it
Yeah.
works. So yeah, it's one of these like if you don't know how to deal with that, then you're beholden for like the rest of your life.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So like past the meal plan, like what is help now to kind of like turn a bit of a quarter?
Um, I think definitely gonna put in more emphasis on like how do I feel like and um how do I want to feel and what's really important to me like um kind of you know I think when I'm getting scared about like adding food or something. Something that sometimes helps me is thinking like, well, do I, if I'm having a hard time with training or whatever, like, do I want to feel this way for the rest of my life? Like, because I know I want to train, as long as I can or whatever. And so, is it like, do I like, does it make me happy? Does it make me feel excited about, doing it if this is all the way it's always going to be? Um, and also, getting away from meal plans and tracking calories and things like that, and kind of having more of a kind of like more flexible approach to it, and also like having like we did it was just like a mini cut last year, but like it was so much easier than any cut I've ever done before, because I think we built up my calories to a good place before that. So the cut, it wasn't kind of awful. I didn't feel like shit the whole time.
Yeah,
And so kind of having that confidence that it's okay if I gain weight, like I can lose it really quickly and it doesn't have to feel like shit
yeah,
to do that, which like, it's still going to be scary if I gain weight, but at least I have that kind of experience under my belt of being able to cut it pretty quickly and pretty easily.
yeah,
Um, has definitely really helped. And because I think that's something I kind of used to unconsciously think like if I gain weight, I won't be able to lose it ever. Like it'll, because
yeah,
I think I used to put myself into a hole and way under eat, and then it would be hard to lose weight and things. So just to kind of have the experience of doing it well and easily.
yeah, absolutely. And I'll say like there's so much shit there. So like one thing for sure, yeah, the cut was easy, partially because and I've never actually punched your food into a calorie tracker, and you don't, and I don't think you should. But like I
Yeah,
um I can tell you're eating in the like the mid 2000s on a pretty regular basis, like pretty handily, and maybe higher. And I say maybe because again, I don't know, but I do know that it's high and high in a way that's like very good for fostering positive training. And when your metabolism's that high and you're feeding that well, like it just gets easier. Like
yeah,
you have a lot more leeway. Like my maintenance is somewhere around 3,000. I have a lot of leeway to do with that what I want. Whereas like someone whose maintenance is 1,200, like you can't do much with that
yeah.
100%. So one another thing you said, like getting really clear on priorities. The amount of times I've told probably everybody I train that like you're an adult, you can do what you want is countless at this point. And that's really all there is to it. Cause like you're not a 5 year old. Like you
Yeah.
me telling you you have to do something is insane. Like it just you have options and you have to choose which one you actually want. So I love that you're like framing that in the sense that I want to train really hard for a really long time. And this is what's going to help me do that. I mean, on that note, like when you're this week, we've actually upped a little bit because you upped your training. So we needed to increase food a little bit if you wanted to train well. Like, how has that felt?
It's it's always kind of like a like the the first couple workouts on more food. It's like holy shit, like workouts don't have to be that hard. Like it doesn't have to suck this bad.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
yeah, and it's so much easier, and it bleeds into everything else. Like training isn't as hard, so I feel better about it. I'm feeling I have more energy for other things in my life. It makes it all so much easier. Um, even I mean, like it's still, especially I have moments where when I'm making an extra protein shake or something where it's like, holy shit, this feels like a, adding a lot at once or whatever. But it kind of to do that and then, like have my training and not feel like shit then the next day is it makes it a little bit easy. Like it's like, I know the calories are going to like are making a difference or must be like doing something other than just kind of like, packing it on.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the the number on the scale is really hard, right? Because like it's I don't know. I'll use mine because I know them very closely at this point. Like my weight is somewhere like right around 180, and I'm 5'7". That technically puts me like very close to obese. Um, but I'm just like built kind of like a brick shit house. Like I'm very big. I have a lot of muscle on me, and I used to get very focused on that number because like when I originally lost all that weight, I was down to like 155. So like that extra increase has been hard to manage and it still feels kind of weird, but it just doesn't matter. It's like if I feel better, that's what matters.
Yeah, yeah. And so I hadn't weighed myself in years until like a few months ago, and I was trying to take a boxing fight, and so had to have my weight so they could match me up with an opponent, and was kind of freaking out a little bit about weighing myself. And one really helpful thing that my brother actually did is he had me um, make a spreadsheet with like um, kind of I put like a bunch of weight ranges. And then in one column I put like what I kind of was making that weight range mean. If I like I didn't even know what I weighed, but like if I weighed this, this is what I thought that meant. And then we took that column of, what I kind of thought, like my reaction to it, what that meant about me, and kind of looked at it like, where is that coming from? Is that really how I feel? If it and we even did like, if it was someone else, what would I tell them about that, that weight and what that means about them? And so we did another column where we kind of like rewrote the narrative and what do I want it to mean and to what do I want the kind of story about that to be. And so I think like, the first column was things like, lazy bitch or super fat, stuff like that. And then the second column was like juicy muscles and swole patrol, like, stuff like that. That was really helpful for kind of like stepping out of that kind of scared reactive mode to like
Love that.
taking my power back about it.
It's awesome. Yeah, I you mentioned just like doing that, and I thought that was such a delightful idea and really helpful because we don't judge others in the same way like you judge yourself.
Yeah,
And
100%.
like I mean, Jesus, I see this. I'm very open about my own struggles, and I know like I'm a trainer and I coach people, and I feel the need to fairly regularly reiterate like I really don't care. Like it's not a thing. I feel like because people know my job, like we'll be out to eat or whatever, and they almost like apologize to me for having pizza as I'm shoveling it into my face. And I just like I don't give a shit, man. Like it doesn't
Yeah,
matter to me at all. I just like I'm very judgmental of myself, but like people should live how they want to live and feel good. And that's all that really matters. Like that's the whole
yeah,
goal.
yeah, 100%.
But like where are you, I guess where are you now on all this stuff? Like what do you have coming up? Are you training boxing still? Are you trying to get a fight going? Mhm.
Yeah, I've been looking for an opponent since January. But haven't been able to find another a girl in my weight class and experience. So still trying to do that. Um, and then training. Hope I'm starting to think about maybe doing a jiu-jitsu competition. Kind of in the meantime, there's been a few local ones, and maybe trying to step back into that a little bit. Um, but yeah,
That's huge. The fact that you like took a couple years off and you're thinking about competing now is amazing. That's awesome.
it's yeah. I didn't think I'd ever do jiu-jitsu, never mind compete. So
That's really cool. Like, and one thing I wanted to touch on that I meant to do earlier, but you mentioned, and this is the thing I still struggle with, so I don't have an answer here. So I'm almost hoping like to have some insight that might hit for somebody else. You said like not tying your self-worth to weight or what you're eating or any of these things has been paramount in progress. And obviously I agree. And have felt that for myself. But as far as the things that helped you not get to the other side, but at least be able to take a step back and make that make that choice and make it less reactive. What have been some things that have helped?
um, I think kind of think again like thinking in other people like what do I kind of care about and judge in other people like I if there's thinking of people that I know that aren't necessarily like 12% body fat, but does that is that what changes my opinion about them? And it's like no, it's more based on like who they are, and then I kind of create my story and explanation for why afterwards. So if I like someone, I'm going to create a story for it to be okay for them to have whatever body fat percentage they do. If I don't like someone, then yeah, then I'll create a story about, oh yeah, like fuck them, they have not that not that I think this about anyone, but like it's kind of like that's not the thing that determines what you feel about someone. And so not
Yeah,
doing that to myself. And then almost the reverse thinking of people in my life who have made comments to me about my weight or my appearance and how I feel about them and whether I want to like it if I don't I wouldn't want to do that to someone else because I know how it feels. So why am I doing that to myself? Um, and kind of using both positive and negative examples and then trying to kind of turn that back on myself. Um,
that makes a lot of sense. I mean, as I've mentioned to you and a couple times to other people, like that last part is actually why I kind of market as I do in this industry because I know how destructive the constant talk about weight is to me. Um, and I just can't. Power to those who do it well, but to me, I just can't. So
yeah,
I I very much understand that like you have to kind of frame both directions. Like what would you want done to you, and kind of deal with the others, and then kind of that can be really useful the other direction as well.
yeah.
Thank you so much. I think that's kind of it. I really appreciate you doing all this. Do you have anything else or anything else you think might be helpful for people before we close this out?
I don't think so. Thank you so much for having me on.
Cool. Thanks so much, Kelly. Hang on around a sec. I'm gonna stop recording. And to
Cool.
everybody listening, there is a, path through the struggle if you're currently going through it or you know someone who is, and it's never gone, but it gets a lot easier. So thank you. Thank you for listening to the Trail and Ultra Running Training Podcast. Honestly, I'm still surprised and honored that anybody wants to hear what I have to say, so thank you. To be clear, not a doctor, nor a registered dietitian, or any other kind of medical professional. I'm a personal trainer, a nutrition coach, and a running coach, and I have a passion for training trail runners. You should always speak with a qualified medical professional before making any changes to your training or nutrition program. If you enjoyed the podcast or found it helpful, please take a second to leave a rating or review. I'd really appreciate it. Or you could just share it with someone for whom you think it might be helpful. I make these kinds of things in order to provide more quality, free resources to people, so the more people who hear it, the better. If you want more of this information, please head to the Trail and Ultra Running Training group on Facebook, where we discuss all aspects of training so you can have more fun doing the sport that you love. Thank you again for listening.